I've zeroed in on the specifics. Yoga Concepts 2933, focusing on chakra information, especially the first 4 chakras. I'm now zeroing in on the tone, aiming for humorous and relatable storytelling that prioritizes emotional well-being. I'm now integrating the ideas from the recent chakra concepts. I'm starting section by section with an iterative refinement on the tone. I'm now drafting the core of the novel, starting with the root chakra. I'm building on the idea that when I'm off, I can feel the chakras lagging. I have an interesting angle on Manipura, specifically inner dragon versus aggressive power. I am now focusing on the heart chakra and the feeling of vulnerability. I'm exploring the act of hunching over as a form of protection. I'm also refining the overall soft novel voice, making sure to hit the keywords: gentle, nervous system, cozy, permission, stumble, human, mess. I'm injecting self-deprecation and stressing the takeaway: you are okay as you are, which is not a fix your chakras demand. For a long time, I thought chakras were metaphorical, like having a spring in your step or butterflies in your stomach. Then I realized they are actually very real traffic intersections in my body, and mine were suffering from severe gridlock. I picture my chakras like a series of internal Wi-Fi routers. When they're working, I am streaming 4K reality with 0 lag. But usually, I'm operating on 1 bar of signal, trying to load a simple email while spinning the wheel of death. Working with my chakras isn't about becoming a magical being of pure light. It's about troubleshooting my own system. It's noticing, oh, my throat router is glitchy because I didn't say what I meant, or my heart router is offline because I'm protecting my password. The practice is just basic IT support for the soul. I breathe into the tight spots. I visualize the spinning wheels getting unstuck. And slowly, the signal comes back. I stop lagging. I rejoin the network of the living, fully connected and ready to download the day. My root chakra, situated at the base of the spine, is responsible for my sense of survival, safety, and belonging. Unfortunately, my root chakra often thinks we are currently in a survival horror movie, even when we are just at the DMV. Muladhara is the basement of the soul. When it's messy, full of fear, financial worry, and existential dread, the whole house shakes. I used to try to fix my anxiety by thinking happier thoughts, the attic, but you can't fix a foundation by painting the roof. So now I do the unglamorous work of grounding. I stand on the grass, I wear thick socks, I eat root vegetables, potatoes are spiritual, pass it on. I tell my nervous system, repeatedly, we are here, we have ground under our feet, we are not currently being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. When my root is happy, I feel a heavy, delicious stability. It's the feeling of being a paperweight in a windy room. I stop fluttering. I stop apologizing for taking up space. I realize that I have a right to be here, just like the trees and the mountains and the very confident pigeons in the park. If the root is the basement, Svadhisthana, the hips and sacrum, is the messy art studio where I keep my feelings, my desires, and apparently every unshed tear from 2008.
My hands are usually the most anxious part of me. They are constantly looking for a job, scrolling a phone, picking at a hangnail, rearranging the coasters, or tightly gripping a steering wheel as if I can drive the car faster by sheer force of will. Mudras are the practice of giving my hands a better job description. Instead of chief officers of fidgeting, they become antennas of calm. When I touch my thumb to my index finger, Chin Mudra, I feel ridiculous for exactly 3 seconds. I feel like a stock photo of a spiritual person. But then the magic happens. The circuit closes. It's a tiny physical lock that tells my brain we are in efficiency mode. We are contained. Placing my hands in Anjali Mudra, prayer position, at my heart is even more powerful. It balances the left and right hemispheres of the brain, or so I'm told. All I know is that pressing my palms together feels like bringing the scattered parts of myself back to center. It's a way of physically collecting my own attention. It's a tactile reminder that I don't have to grasp at the world to be safe. I can just hold my own hands and be whole. I treat my mind like a junk drawer. I shove everything in there. Awkward memories, song lyrics, fears about the economy, grocery lists, and then I struggle to open the drawer because a spatula of impending doom is jamming the track. Kriya is the brave act of cleaning out the drawer. It involves repetitive movements, breathwork, and sometimes making sounds that would alarm my neighbors if they could hear me. It's not the pretty, flowing yoga that looks good on Instagram. It's the gritty, repetitive, scrubbing the grout kind of yoga. Doing a Kriya feels like being a human washing machine. I churn, I breathe, I sweat. I wonder, why am I doing this? I could be eating toast. But then the cycle finishes, the spin cycle stops, and the silence that follows, it's sparkling. The brain fog lifts, the emotional dust bunnies are gone. I sit there feeling scrubbed raw but incredibly light, realizing that I wasn't actually tired. I was just clogged. Kriya reminds me that I don't need to buy a new mind. I just needed to take the old one to the car wash. Left to its own devices, the playlist in my head is terrible. It loops the Anxiety remix, featuring tracks like You Forgot to Email Him Back and Remember That Thing You Said in 2004. Mantra is the practice of hijacking the DJ booth. It's replacing the noise with a sound that actually helps. At first, chanting feels weird. My voice sounds thin, and my ego stands in the corner rolling its eyes, whispering, "You sound like you're in a cult," but I keep going. Om Namah Shivaya, So Sat Nam. I repeat the words until they stop being words and start being vibrations. The repetition acts like a gentle ocean wave, smoothing over the jagged rocks of my thoughts. The mantra gives my busy mind a chew toy so the rest of me can relax. Eventually, the worry loop breaks. The bad DJ takes a break, and I am left with a rhythm that feels like a heartbeat, steady, ancient, and much kinder than my own inner monologue. We've all seen the cartoon version of a meditator chanting, Om. It's the cliche. But doing it is a whole different vibration. When I chant Om, which is really AUM, I'm not just making a noise, I'm tuning my instrument. The R starts deep in my belly, vibrating through all the snacks I ate. The ooh rolls through my chest, shaking loose the heartache. The buzzes in my lips, and head like a bumblebee made of pure peace. There is something profoundly lonely about being a human sometimes. We are trapped in our separate bodies, with our separate problems. Chanting Om, especially in a room with other people, dissolves that separation. For a long exhale, I am not just me, the person with the credit score and the bad knee. I am a sound wave. I am part of the choir. I merge with the hum of the fridge, the hum of the traffic, the hum of the stars. It's the sonic version of a group hug, and it reminds me that even when I feel solo, I'm part of the symphony. I am not a morning person. I am a morning grump. My body wakes up feeling like it was folded into a suitcase overnight. The idea of greeting the sun feels aggressive. I would prefer to greet the coffee maker and perhaps a croissant. But the sun salutation, Surya Namaskar, is a non-negotiable ritual. It's a prayer in motion. It doesn't demand I feel happy. It just demands I move.
I've begun dissecting the request, focusing on identifying the source material, specifically items 46 to 51 from a yoga and philosophy concept list. Right now, I'm organizing those concepts and their relationship to the goal, trying to find the connection between the source material and the goal. I'm now deeply immersed in shaping the style. The goal is to craft a soft novel that speaks in a relatable, first-person perspective, sprinkled with gentle humor and designed to be emotionally comforting. I've begun to flesh out the royal metaphor and the imagery for Raja Yoga, imagining a mental boardroom and a tinfoil crown to highlight the coup d'etat of the ego. I'm now fully immersed in the emotional aspect, exploring themes of love, surrender, and finding the divine in everyday experiences. I'm focusing on the shift from intellectual understanding to heartfelt connection, drawing on imagery like spiritual karaoke and the joy of singing in the car. It's about allowing myself to feel deeply, seeing emotion as a strength, not a weakness. I'm also delving into the heart-exploding analogy and enjoying even the silly humor, like crying at commercials. I'm now zeroing in on karma yoga, contrasting the ego's thirst for validation with the freedom of selfless action. I'm playing with images like the look at me dance and the invisible scoreboard, and the idea of mundane tasks, like taking out the trash, becoming spiritual acts. There's a lot of humor in the expectation of applause. The end goal is to communicate that this provides liberation from the image-seeking and approval-seeking. I'm now integrating the seemingly disparate concepts of the senses and spiritual practice and moving from the spiritual versus material split. I'm focusing on how the everyday can be sacred, like the coffee in traffic. I am using the lens of weaving from Tantra to illustrate how life is a loom and every aspect is a thread. I am also planning how to include humor, and the takeaway will be wholeness. I'm now zeroing in on the comfort and humor within routine, drawing parallels with the predictability of a yoga primary series. I'm envisioning the puddle of sweat as a badge of honor and refining the 5 more breaths joke to land the emotional effect. The The key is to highlight the well-being benefits of safety and structure that allows me to shut off decision fatigue. Raja Yoga is the path of the king, which sounds glamorous until I look at who is currently sitting on the throne of my mind. Usually, it is a terrified toddler wearing a Burger King crown, screaming about deadlines and whether I turned off the hair straightener. Raja Yoga is the gentle coup d'etat. It is the process of training the mind so that the benevolent, wise version of me can actually take the wheel. It's the path of meditation, focus, and psychological mastery. It's less about doing fancy handstands and more about the invisible gymnastics of choosing not to spiral when someone sends a vague text message. This practice teaches me that I am not the jester dancing for the amusement of my own neuroses. I am the monarch. I have the power to issue a royal decree of silence. I can look at a rogue thought, like everyone secretly finds you annoying, and simply not sign the legislation. It's a regal feeling, reclaiming this sovereignty. I might be sitting on a yoga block in sweatpants, but inside I am wearing the velvet cape. I am ruling the kingdom of my own consciousness with a firm but merciful hand. And the first order of business, mandatory nap time for the ego. I spent a lot of time trying to intellectualize the universe, treating spirituality like a math problem I could solve if I just read enough books. Bhakti Yoga took my books, threw them out the window, and handed me a ukulele. Bhakti is the path of heart. It's devotion. It's the realization that I don't need to understand gravity to fall. I just need to let go. For a person who loves control, Bhakti is terrifying and exhilarating. It asks me to surrender my cool, cynical exterior and admit that I am deeply, embarrassingly in love with aliveness. It changes how I move through the world. Instead of just drinking coffee, I am communing with the bean. Instead of just walking the dog, I am serving a small, furry deity of joy. My playlists shift from music to grind to songs that make my chest feel like a toasted marshmallow. The emotional well-being here is massive because Bhakti gives me a place to put all my big feelings. I don't have to bottle them up. I can pour them out, my grief, my gratitude, my awe, as an offering. I spend a lot of time in the if-only lounge. If only I had a flatter stomach. If only I had a bigger paycheck. If only I could touch my toes without making a sound like a rusty gate opening. I've spent years thinking that happiness is a destination I'll arrive at once I've finally optimized every square inch of my existence. Santosha is the practice of checking out of the lounge and realizing the lobby I'm standing in is actually pretty nice. On the mat, it happens when I'm in a deep twist and I hear the unmistakable creak of my leggings being pushed to their absolute structural limit. My old self would have been mortified. My Santosha self just smiles and thinks, well, at least the seams are holding. It's the radical act of being okay with the right now. It doesn't mean I don't want to grow. It just means I've stopped making my self-worth a hostage to my future goals. I can be a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time. I look at my life, with its weird quirks, its unfinished projects, and its occasional laundry mountain, and I give it a thumbs up. I'm good, not perfect good, but actually alive and trying good. And honestly, that's plenty. My natural state is couch potato with a side of procrastination. If there were an Olympic event for finding the most comfortable way to lie down, I would take the gold every single time. Discipline to me used to feel like a mean gym teacher with a whistle, yelling at me to do things I hated. Tapas is the rebrand. It's the inner heat, the friction that happens when you choose the growth over the comfort. It's that moment when I'm holding a plank and my core starts to shake like a frightened chihuahua. That's the burn. It's the feeling of my excuses melting away. But it's not just physical. Tapas is also the discipline of not checking my phone when I'm bored, or choosing to be kind when I'm hangry. It's the fire that transforms the raw dough of my intentions into the actual bread of my life. Yes, extra cheese is great. I love extra cheese. But tapas reminds me that if I only ever choose the extra cheese path, I'll never find out what I'm actually capable of. Sometimes you have to stay in the heat of the moment until you stop trying to escape it. I'm learning to sit with the discomfort until it turns into strength. It's a slow cook, but the results are much more satisfying than a quick snack. I used to think I knew myself. Then I started practicing svadhyaya, and I realized I was actually living with a total stranger who just happens to use my toothbrush. Svadhyaya is self-study, the practice of looking at my own patterns without immediately trying to file a restraining order against them. It's becoming a scientist of my own soul. I start to notice things. Interesting. Every time I feel rejected, I buy 3 types of artisanal cheese and watch period dramas for 6 hours. Or fascinating, when I'm stressed, I start speaking in a passive-aggressive tone that only dogs can hear. It's not about judging. It's about observing. It's realizing that my bad choices are usually just mismanaged attempts to feel safe or loved. I look back at my life and see the recurring themes, and instead of face-palming, I offer myself a little bit of grace. And yes, it includes the tacos. Svadhyaya is realizing that a midnight taco isn't a failure of willpower. Sometimes it's a necessary act of soul-fueling joy. When I study myself, I become my own best friend instead of my own harshest critic. I'm finally reading the instruction manual for being me, and it turns out the me model is a lot more complex and lovable than I thought. I am a control freak. I want to be the CEO of the universe. I want to micromanage the weather, the traffic, and the exact timing of when people reply to my texts. I spend a lot of energy trying to hold the world together with my bare hands, and frankly, my grip is getting tired. Ishvara Pranidhana is the great let go. It's surrendering to the fact that I am not the one in charge of the big picture. On the mat, it's that moment when I'm trying to be a graceful yogi in downward dog, but I feel more like a doorstep, stiff, unyielding, and slightly dusty. Instead of fighting it, I just exhale and say, okay, universe, this is where we are today. I surrender. It's the relief of realizing I can stop trying to outrun destiny. I do my part, I show up, I breathe, I try my best, and then I hand the keys over to the divine or the great mystery or just the flow of life.
I've begun delving into the Yoga Sutras, specifically concepts 7 through 11. My current focus is extending each concept into a soft, novel format from a first-person perspective, with humor and a strong emphasis on emotional well-being. I'm exploring the implications of santosha, tapas, svadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana, and asana in daily life, and the potential impact of each on my own practice. I'm now finding fresh angles on the Yoga Sutras, adding a comedic layer. I'm focusing on contentment and the I am enough feeling, even when I'm reaching for more. I'm also exploring discipline and change, and the friction that creates. Self-study has me observing my life choices, like tacos at midnight. Surrender feels like trusting the universe to steer. I'm now integrating the physical aspects of yoga practice more deeply into my narrative. I'm visualizing the tree pose, not just as a static posture, but as a metaphor for navigating life's inherent instabilities. The gentle humor of gravity as a committed trainer is a core focus, giving a soft approach to self-improvement. The wobbles become a fashion statement. I spend a lot of time in the if-only lounge. If only I had a flatter stomach. If only I had a bigger paycheck. If only I could touch my toes without making a sound like a rusty gate opening. I've spent years thinking that happiness is a destination I'll arrive at once. I've finally optimized every square inch of my existence. Santosha is the practice of checking out of the lounge and realizing the lobby I'm standing in is actually pretty nice. On the mat, it happens when I'm in a deep twist and I hear the unmistakable creak of my leggings being pushed to their absolute structural limit. My old self would have been mortified. My Santosha self just smiles and thinks, well, at least the seams are holding. It's the radical act of being okay with the right now. It doesn't mean I don't want to grow. It just means I've stopped making my self-worth a hostage to my future goals. I can be a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time. I look at my life, with its weird quirks, its unfinished projects, and its occasional laundry mountain, and I give it a thumbs up. I'm good. Not perfect good, but actually alive and trying good. And honestly, that's plenty. My natural state is couch potato with a side of procrastination. If there were an Olympic event for finding the most comfortable way to lie down, I would take the gold every single time. Discipline, to me, used to feel like a mean gym teacher with a whistle, yelling at me to do things I hated. Tapas is the rebrand. It's the inner heat, the friction that happens when you choose the growth over the comfort. It's that moment when I'm holding a plank and my core starts to shake like a frightened chihuahua. That's the burn. It's the feeling of my excuses melting away. But it's not just physical. Tapas is also the discipline of not checking my phone when I'm bored or choosing to be kind when I'm hangry. It's the fire that transforms the raw dough of my intentions into the actual bread of my life. Yes, extra cheese is great. I love extra cheese. But tapas reminds me that if I only ever choose the extra cheese path, I'll never find out what I'm actually capable of. Sometimes you have to stay in the heat of the moment until you stop trying to escape it. I'm learning to sit with the discomfort until it turns into strength. It's a slow cook, but the results are much more satisfying than a quick snack. I used to think I knew myself. Then I started practicing svadhyaya, and I realized I was actually living with a total stranger who just happens to use my toothbrush. Svadhyaya is self-study, the practice of looking at my own patterns without immediately trying to file a restraining order against them. It's becoming a scientist of my own soul. I start to notice things. Interesting. Every time I feel rejected, I buy 3 types of artisanal cheese and watch period dramas for 6 hours. Or, fascinating, when I'm stressed, I start speaking in a passive-aggressive tone that only dogs can hear. It's not about judging, it's about observing. It's realizing that my bad choices are usually just mismanaged attempts to feel safe or loved. I look back at my life and see the recurring themes, and instead of face palming, I offer myself a little bit of grace. And yes, it includes the tacos. Svadhyaya is realizing that a midnight taco isn't a failure of willpower. Sometimes it's a necessary act of soul-fueling joy. I'm now zeroing in on the essential concepts from the source material: Jnana Yoga, Tantra Yoga, Mantra, Mudra, Bandha, and Chakra. My focus is understanding how these might best translate into a soft novel style, focusing on story crafting. My primary objective is to select the most impactful concepts for a good story. I'm now integrating humor and well-being into my approach. I'm focusing on making complex ideas entertaining and accessible, aiming for a sense of comfort and growth. I've begun to tackle Jnana Yoga, starting with the classic "Who am I?" question. I'm developing a funny contrast between everyday anxieties and the deeper wisdom of self-inquiry. I'm framing my perspective around "I am not my job title" and other relatable anxieties. I'm now zeroing in on Tantra, aiming to demystify its misunderstood elements. My approach involves humor to address common stereotypes and highlight its core philosophy. I'm focusing on yes to life, finding the sacred in mundane tasks like laundry. I'm weaving a messy kitchen into the divine plan. I'm translating the ancient texts through modern contexts, so pizza and sunsets can become part of the experience. Now, I'm examining mantra's potential as a mind tool. I'm drawing a parallel between the nagging to-do list and annoying earworms to get to the heart of the concept. I'm aiming to transform that inner critic. I also think I've decided to play on the silly feeling people get when chanting for the first time, to make the concept approachable. I'm now diving into Mudra and Bandha. I'm visualizing them as yoga for hands and secrets of the pelvic floor, respectively. It's about finding humor in the everyday, like doing shadow puppets, and the awkwardness of internal locks. I'm focusing on the tactile feeling as a mind calmer. The latest thought is on how it can bring about the sensation of closing a circuit. I can't wait to play with the physical sensations of these postures. I'm now focusing on bandhas and chakras. I'm likening bandhas to energy Tupperware, emphasizing stability and emotional regulation. For chakras, I'm imagining them as power strips, with a map for emotional tension points. I'm aiming to keep my tone sincere while translating complex concepts into relatable terms. I'm picturing my body as mechanics. I'm now integrating humor checks into my process. I'm making sure my jokes are gentle and relatable, especially those about everyday anxieties. I'm focusing on existential crisis over breakfast to make sure my tone lands well. My latest effort is to refine how these jokes enhance the reader's experience.